Hey, I want to give you a very brief introduction into two-point perspective. So just like one-point perspective, we can put our horizon line in here, but instead of having a single point perspective point on this horizon line, we should have two perspective points. In this case, I'm going to put them absolutely as far away from each other as possible. And then, when we get into our project, sometimes I'm even going to advise you to hook additional pieces of paper onto your page way out, away from this, that we can fold out. We can fold out, and it becomes, and it moves our points out further. Now, if I'm going to do an object of any sort in front or beneath the horizon line, then I'll start, instead of drawing the entire rectangle or the shape of the object, I start with one edge. I want to now recede this edge to that vanishing point. Remember, I could continue the entire line all the way there, but that's not really necessary. I can make an estimate right now of how far I think this object is going to go, and then I can use my ruler and these gridded lines within it I'm laying one of those gridded lines on top of the line I just drew. I'm going to put a mark down there, and now I have these two parallel lines. Both of these lines are receding to that vanishing point. I can actually recede to this vanishing point over here from my other lines. So notice one thing I'll do sometimes is I'll hold my pencil where I want my line to begin, and then I rotate until I am coming to the vanishing point over here. So in this case, I pull that bottom line to the vanishing point. If I continued to recede with that line, it would go all the way to the vanishing point, but I don't need to do that. This line is going to recede to the vanishing point also. And now this one, I'm going to go a little further, and now this one on top, this top corner will also recede. So I can decide how thick the front of this building is going to be, and in this case, I'm not going to use my gridded ruler to do this, but I'm going to estimate if this space looks acceptable, it looks like it's the same distance at the top and bottom, I'm going to assume that this back line is parallel with that. Now, from the intersections of these two lines, I can recede back to that line, and bing, bada, boom, I now have a box in two-point perspective. I'm going to want you guys to play around with doing repetitive forms, and one of the ways that we'll do that, I'll make a sidewalk sort of shape here. I'll exaggerate it. So I'm going to recede some lines, to this point. So just generally from there, and now I'll go from here. I think I'm going to come past here. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and just use this one since that edge is already there. I'll continue forward like this. Bam. Now what we do in a case like this, I want to cause this to have sort of sidewalk, the way that sidewalks have certain marks which recede. Oh, what am I trying to say? I'm going to have rectangles which decrease in size the farther they get away from us. It's, of course, very easy to do it in this way because those lines are already doing that for us. But if I want to have each one of these recede that way, what I can do is I can estimate where the center of this line is. I'm going to draw a very light guideline down this. I may do it kind of dark right now so that it shows up a little better on the video. Now notice that mark came right to this point. I'm going to, at first I'll draw a diagonal to show you what I'm doing. I laid my ruler diagonally from the corner of this first rectangle through the center point, And where I end up right here is where I'm going to draw my next receding line. Now I don't have to draw that line every time, and I'll demonstrate the difference in this next one. Bam. So I would do the same thing to establish that distance on this. I'm going to hold my pencil on the corner of this. I'm going to measure through this intersecting mark, and I'm just going to mark right here. Or sometimes I'll just lay my pencil there, and then as I bring my ruler across the vanishing point, then I know this is the size of the next one. I can continue in the same vein from this across the center, hold my pencil there, I'll set my ruler, and bing bada boom, I have that one now. So see how each one of these is becoming slightly shorter as we go back in space. So that's really what we are attempting to achieve. We can do the same thing if we're doing checkerboards. If you're OCD, and I hope you will be on this project, you can also use this same technique for establishing exactly how big windows on a building would be. If you're drawing a train, this will be a way that you could establish all of the windows, or even the size of the wheels, the distance apart of the wheels as it goes back. It's just a really great method for doing this. And one more, and then I'll move on. Pow. I'm going to just experiment with drawing a little thing here. This one is going to be a little different. I think that the top and bottom, I'll be able to do it in 2-point perspective. I want to cross the horizon line, and so I think I'm going to start with the front corner and just see what happens here. And I might make it into that. So then I know that it's not purely horizontal because of the direction like that, so I'm going to make it ever so slightly. Haha. And now I'll let this one go this way. So the reason I'm showing you this is I want us to see how this really is an effective method for rendering objects in the real world. You know, in school, in education, we always make linear perspective kind of a game that we play, just a sort of weird thing that we have to do in order to pass our art class. But it does have a real world potential and application. All right, I'm going to trust that I might be able to pull this off in certain ways. There's my top. Here's that one. Okay, and then, I'm just going to estimate the size of this one. I know that this half is going to appear slightly smaller than this one because it is slightly farther away from us. And then I'm going to guess at this first angle. You know, for now, it's good. If I decide that it's not good later, I may try to repair that. We can always get back into these things and repair them. Bam. I'm having this come across. Now, judging roughly how wide this is. Oh, actually, there's a real way that I can do this, that I can figure this out. If I continue this line straight down and I continue that one straight over, then we see the back point of this. Even though it's hidden behind a building, we can see where the back point of that would be. If I were to then draw the line across here, we see where it would intersect right there, and then I can simply put my parallel right there. So in that method, that very simple method of doing something which would be hidden from us normally, but that's the reason we use these guidelines, is and I could establish what would actually be the distance there. Now, let's keep going on this. There are a couple of features. I think that I'm going to try to put this wire right there. And I'm going to mark it a little bit like this, and then make a decision. It appears that I might be able to cut it slightly into this surface. So if this groove in that wood comes across here, bam, now here, pow. Recede ever so slightly this way. So even these little cuts that we might be able just to imagine or fake out, why don't we go ahead and measure those? Because then, well, they're just going to be correct. And our drawings are going to look great. And people are going to think we're geniuses. I'm probably going to be able to bring this wire out slightly more. And, oh, I think that I can recede this point right here. So no matter how small a point is, it can still be receded in linear perspective. I'm going to make a slight bend in that and hide it probably behind here rather quickly. Pow. Now I can get in here and erase those marks at any point. I don't mind the guidelines at first, and often I'll wait until much later in the process before I do that. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, so we have a groove which is straight across right here, so I could have continued these guidelines in the same way. If this groove is on this side, it's going to be on the same side over here. Oh, that was horrible. Now, I'll estimate this one at first, sketch it. If I decide I need to use a straight edge on that, I'll go ahead and do that, but I think that I can get close enough in this process. Also, there are ways to draw ellipses in linear perspective, and I'm just not ready to do that right now. Oops. I think I might be able to pull this off without doing that. So at this point, I'm just observing. Sweet. Oops. Try to create some symmetrical marks right here. Oh. Now, since this spring falls so close to the horizon line, I could get in here and do a little bit of linear perspective, but frankly, it's not going to show up very much because at the horizon line, things start to seem flat.